Hello, everybody. It's Mrs. Pound, and we are talking about Chapter 3, Introduction to Cells from BJU Biology, 4th edition. So, the section we've been working on is Section 3A, the structure of cells. Our objectives for today's video are to explain the difference between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells, describe the structure and function of the cell membrane, list the major organelles in the cell and describe their functions, and describe the nucleus and its structure. So there's a lot we're going to cover today. So the section in your book is section 3.3, Cellular Anatomy. Now, when we talk about the cell contains many organelles, and organelle literally means little organ. An organelle is a structure in the cell that performs special functions in the cell, just like the organs in our body. That's why they called them organelles. Now, there are a couple of different types of organelles, and in eukaryotic cells, they have a membrane-bound nucleus and both membrane and non-membrane-bound organelles. So when we talk about organelles, there are some that are membrane-bound and some that are non-membrane-bound. And examples of eukaryotic cells are found in humans, plants, and animals. There are also prokaryotic cells. These lack a membrane around their nuclear area and contain only non-membrane bound organelles. They tend to be a little simpler than eukaryotic cells. And an example of these types of cells are bacteria. Now, let's first talk about the cell membrane because this controls the movement of substances in and out of the cell. It also acts as the boundary between the cell and its environment. So it's on the very outside. And this is the picture from your book. So the cell membrane is on the outside, separating the cell from its environment. And this is a picture of an animal cell. The cell membrane is made up of what is called the lipid bilayer. This is two layers of phospholipids that make up the cell membrane. And we talked about this when we talked about phospholipids. So here is the phospholipid bilayer. You see here the circular end is the hydrophilic heads, labeled here. The hydrophobic tails are in the middle. So the hydrophilic heads are towards the watery environments, the extracellular fluid, and the cytoplasm, which is inside of the cell. And you can see that the cell membrane is actually pretty complex. It's not just these two layers, it has all kinds of things embedded in it and attached to it. Now, proteins embedded in the cell membrane will give certain characteristics to the membrane. So, all of these things here allow the cell to do different things. And also, do you see these carbohydrates sticking out? Those are really important for say your immune system to identify that the cells actually belong to you so they don't get attacked. Where if they have foreign carbohydrates on them, they might think that they're an invader like a bacteria and attack them. Now, there's also some cells have a cell wall. This protects and supports the cell and is composed of cellulose. This is not in humans or animals, okay? We usually think of this as in plants, but it's also in fungi and some protists. So here we have a plant cell, and we have the cell membrane just inside the cell wall. So the cell wall is on the very outside, cell membrane just inside. Now, so that's the boundary. Those are the boundary type structures. Now, let's talk about what's inside the cell, and that is the cytoplasm. This is the substance of a cell outside the nucleus and inside the cell membrane. So all of the stuff in here is part of the cytoplasm. Inside the cytoplasm, you'll find mitochondria. These transform energy stored in sugars to usable cellular energy. So here is a mitochondria. They tend to kind of look like kidney beans. They have cristae in them. These are this is the folded membrane inside of the mitochondria where cellular respiration takes place. So these blue folds in the background, those are called cristae. And here we can see that right here. What the cristae do is they increase the surface area for cellular respiration, and so you can see those mitochondria there. Now, there are also ribosomes. These are responsible for protein synthesis. The ribosomes are the little dots. The little red dots are ribosomes. Endoplasmic reticulum. This is folded membranes inside the cell that transport materials. They're kind of these orange colored things here. So there are a couple of types of endoplasmic reticulum. One is rough endoplasmic reticulum, and it has ribosomes attached to it. So it has these rough little dots on it. That's why it's rough. And then there's smooth ER, which does not contain ribosomes. So here we can see endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes attached to it. So that would be rough ER. Out here, no ribosomes attached. That would be smooth ER. Also, very similar and related to the endoplasmic reticulum is the Golgi apparatus. This is involved in the processing and packaging of substances the cell is secreting. So that's actually more this yellowish type thing. It looks very similar. Um, Kind of similar type activities as far as transporting materials, keeping them contained. Um, this would even contain things like enzymes, perhaps that the cell is going to secrete, that it would want to keep contained and would also be modifying so that it's not damaging the cell. So here we have the Golgi apparatus. So it looks very similar to the endoplasmic reticulum. There are also lysosomes. These contain digestive enzymes. And here's a lysosome. These are going to digest materials that they want to break down, that the cell is going to use. It breaks down organelles and cell parts that no longer need to be used, that type of function. There's also the cytoskeleton. This provides structure for the cell and is necessary for movement and reproduction. Now, parts of the cytoskeleton are microtubules. These actually kind of are like little straw type things made out of protein going through the cell, providing structure, providing really kind of tracks for organelles to move along. So important for transportation. The centrosomes, which are important for cell division, and microfilaments, which are not hollow but are more solid, and these are important for movement of some of the cells. Now, speaking of movement, there are also a flagellum, or flagello would be plural, flagellum is singular. These are cell membranes' long tubular extensions that contain a set of microtubules and are used in cellular movement. So here are some microtubules. There's a pair of those, and they form like a whip-like tail, which can help this cell, this looks like a bacterial cell, to move. And actually, on the outside of this cell, is another type of covering called a capsule. And this is what makes bacteria kind of slimy, okay, is that capsule that surrounds it. There also is cilium, is cilia for plural. This is one of numerous short extensions on a cell membrane and it aids in movement. So these usually, there's lots of them compared to a flagellum. And uh, they're much shorter, okay? So we can see some cilia on this cell here. If it's a single-celled organism, it can be used for movement. We actually have cilia in our respiratory tract that are used to move mucus, okay, and sweep mucus out of our respiratory tract. There are also leucoplasts. These store starch in plants. So this is a plant thing. So I probably shouldn't have the animal cell in the background. Um, there are chloroplasts. This is the location of photosynthesis. It contains grana, which contain chlorophyll. These stacks are grana in the background, and each little plate-like thing is called a thylakoid. And these are the location of where that chlorophyll is for photosynthesis. So here is our chloroplast, uh, and it has the granum there. Grana would be plural. There are also what are called vacuoles in a cell, and these provide storage. The central vacuole regulates the buildup of water molecules to maintain turgor pressure in plants. So here, central vacuole, and that can take up to 90% of the cell. There are also things called contractile vacuoles. These collect and pump water out of a cell. So in this paramecium, this is in a very watery environment, freshwater environment. And so these kind of, they look like little suns or star type shaped things. They will fill with water. They will go to the side of the paramecium. They will open up on the cell membrane and let excess water out so that the cell does not burst. There are also vesicles. These provide storage and may contain enzymes for specific reactions. They're generally smaller than vacuoles that are found in cells as well. Okay, now those are all things that are part of the cytoplasm. Let's talk about the nucleus, kind of found usually towards the center of a cell. These are the control center of most cell activity. It stores the DNA and produces RNA. So here is the nucleus, okay, that big ball-like thing, generally surrounded by endoplasmic reticulum, especially rough ER. Now, the nuclear envelope is a double membrane that surrounds the nucleus. So this thing that contains pores on the outside of the nucleus. So right here, and nuclear pores to allow movement of RNA in and out of the nucleus. And that is this material here that looks kind of cloudy, okay? That contains genetic material, the genetic information. Okay, so our objectives today were to explain the differences between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells, describe the structure and function of the cell membrane, list the major organelles in a cell and describe their functions, and describe the nucleus and its structure. Don't forget your 5 questions and remember to keep watching this video to answer the questions at the end.